Hello there everybody, Aero here and welcome to Shed 17, which is a dark rendition of the Thomas the Tank Engine origin story. It's kind of an analog horror and kind of not at the same time, but a fantastic spooky horror story nonetheless. It released almost 10 years ago by a YouTuber called Paul's Vids, and it's the first video in a story of 3. The last one, which wraps up the story, Sodorland, recently came out, so that's kind of given it a reignition into the series, where people like me, and maybe you that have never seen it, are seeing it for the first time. Paul's Vids creates a documentary-style retelling of the Thomas the Tank Engine origin story where we actually find out how Thomas the Tank Engine and his friends became the biometrically fused tank engines that they are. Personally, I used to watch Thomas the Tank Engine before going to school every day when I was younger. Yes, I am an old man. Something that I never asked myself was, what the hell is Thomas the Tank Engine? Why is there a human face on a mechanical machine? Why are some of their faces so creepy and uncanny? And those are questions Paul's Vids, the YouTuber, answers in his documentary. And let me tell you, this goes in a dark place, but a fantastic story. So sit back, relax, and let's watch Shed 17. I know some of you guys are too young for this, but oh, the nostalgia of this scenery. Sodor Island 1982. There he is, Thomas. I miss you, Thomas. Huh. Sodor Island, present day. I wonder how far along it is. Bro, the nostalgia, oh my god. I used to always lie to my mom and say I was too sick to go to school and I'll just stay home and watch this all day. Here we got some graffiti going on. Man, that dark ambiance juxtaposed with the original tune. Pretty damn rusted. Where's Thomas's face?
They were the stories that have charmed an entire generation. From the books to the television series, people around the world have grown up with the railway stories, and all their cheerful characters. But the truth behind Thomas and his friends was no children's fantasy. The truth would be horrifying.
Jeez. As a child, there always was something uncanny about how realistic the faces were on the tank engines, but you just
1945,
forget about it.
And the remote island of Sodor, off the northwest coast of England, has emerged from the fog of World War II, relatively unscathed and untouched.
The island served as a detention camp for Germans living in England.
Keith
That's
Hartley.
how Professor came to be here.
Professor Wilhelm Goetze was born in 1903 in Munich, Germany. A doctor in biology, he became a prominent advisor to the ruling party in the 30s.
Oh my god. Oh, what the hell? I didn't see this angle coming at all.
In 1939, as war escalated, he, his wife Olga, and 4-year-old son Hans fled the country.
The World at War 1973. Is it meant to be like a real-life documentary? As I resided in the lower ranks... As I resided in the lower ranks of the party, I was increasingly abhorred by the direction my government had taken. The things they were rumored to be doing terrified me.
That's what he wanted people to believe. The fact is, his experiments were hard to stomach even for his own people.
In truth, he had become a prominent figure in the government, but as his work progressed, questions and objections had been raised in the higher echelons of the Reich.
The truth behind the photo.
His work with genetics and DNA was truly pioneering. The cracking and manipulating of the human genome. What Professor Goetze was most successful in, however, was keeping his history a secret until his death.
In an attempt to gain favour among the German hierarchy, Wilhelm Goetze was at the forefront of the government's most fanatical policies.
Oh,
In
damn.
1838, he was influential in instigating the infamous Sajmelnacht, the Night of Sawdust. But, as his experiments advanced, he became a much less popular figure and soon feared for his and his family's lives.
So it turns out Wilhelm Goetze is actually based on a real person. It's this guy, Gerard Wilhelm Goetze, and he was an atomic physicist, and he's also the person that we have to thank for images of the first man on the moon, which were recorded through his work.
As they escaped to England, he was banged up here. But the locals were nice to him. There was no hostility, and many of them chose to live here after the war.
Following their release, Professor Goetze, Olga, and young Hans chose to remain. After studying under his father, Hans left at the age of 18 and went to university on the mainland, studying biology and engineering, writing several pioneering papers about genetics and the splicing of DNA with mechanical implants.
He called it biofusion.
I think I see where this is
the
going.
technique of manipulating genetic material to splice with mechanical attachments.
Yep, I see
However,
where this is
much
going.
like his father, the British government became more and more concerned with Hans Goetze's proposals. So he was forced to
Fusion.
seek financial backing from home.
His dad left Germany with quite a few bob.
Ooh,
so
that's a
Hans
long
came back.
torso.
He saw our little island as some sort of refuge where he could work in peace. Soon every nutcase and eccentric was coming over.
By 1962,
The hell was that?
Hans
What-
had set
who
up
was that?
Sodor Research, a small lab near the town of Alsborough, but soon the enterprise began supplying medical equipment and machinery, and quickly grew to become a large complex, comprising its own links to the growing Sodor rail system.
Young Abby Collins from the town was working there when Professor Hans took a liking to her. Soon they were married, and not long after, the town was buzzing with news of her pregnancy.
Baby Thomas was born in 1968.
Baby Thomas, huh? I mean, we've got these guys with the small beady eyes, long noses, and oblong, egg-shaped heads. And then we've got Thomas, circular in every single way. I wonder where we're going to see Thomas next.
Throughout the early years of his life, he would watch the growing railway network with fascination.
He couldn't get enough of trains. His dad bought him one of the first video cameras, and he'd be on the platforms every day. You can see me in some of those tapes.
Hiya, Mr. Hartley.
Morning, Thomas. But he was friends with everyone, even that simple bloke who could only say where he lived.
Sodor.
But his favourite trains were the old steam engines.
Steam engines were a dying art on the British mainland, but Hans also had a fondness for them, much like his son, and likes to keep them running for our purposes, taking orders from the labs to the growing docks, or to the mainland to be transferred to modern postal express trains.
But as the Sodor rail system expanded, it found itself increasingly under the supervision of the new British rail network and appointed a new controller.
Oh, the fat controller.
Sir Topham Hatt,
Oh my god.
born into money.
I'm sorry, I just have to mention this. So back in the day in the actual cartoon, that character was called the Fat Controller or the Fat Conductor, something like that. And honestly, as a kid, we saw nothing wrong with that. He was fat and he was the controller, but he was like a rich guy, so you know, it was all good. And then they changed his name to Sir Topham Hatt. And that was done in the American dub because they deemed the Fat Controller too derogatory in the US. Because everyone there is... No, I'm just kidding.
Born into money, he took his ridiculous name to heart and started wearing a top hat all the time. Of
'Cause
course,
he was
the
rich,
islanders
man.
had a different name for him.
Fat bastard. You've never met such a cold-hearted as him. He banned all steam engine volunteers and cut most at rail employees. Shut down the branch line and the smaller stations. He was happy to let the railway rust away, just like they did to the main line.
But the fortunes of the railway were about to take a profitable turn, a stroke of luck for the island that would result from tragedy.
Yeah, okay, here we
Come
go.
on, we're gonna
The
be
secret
late.
lore.
What's the time? Thomas, get moving.
Young Thomas loved following railway. He'd be out all the time, hoping to catch a new train on his camera.
11:45's coming through soon. He won't wait for us.
Unfortunately, he didn't take as much notice of the safety signs.
I'm not being late again. Have we missed it yet? Wait for the 11:45.
Never mind the 11:45.
It must be late again.
How about we stand right in the center of the railway?
It's always held up.
Bruh. Jump scare. There goes his Lego arm.
Hans was mortified. He disappeared from public view.
Good,
and
it's a
into
family
the labs.
tragedy.
Locking himself in, he wouldn't allow anyone in there. Eventually his father Wilhelm came to see him.
In a few days, a major laboratory had been locked down, followed by an engine maintenance shed, which was to become off limits to all.
Shed 17,
All production
okay.
was shut down, orders weren't met, but the two Professor Goetzes didn't care. More and more equipment was being delivered daily, but no one was allowed in Shed 17.
Questions started being asked on Sodor. Where were the Goetzes? Would there be no funeral for young Thomas? And where was the body?
I'll tell you what happened. The Goetzes were putting their minds together to resurrect old Thomas. But also, I can't get over how low their torsos are, man. This guy can teabag someone standing up.
They'd arranged for Thomas to be transferred to a mainland hospital. He'd been taken to the complex but was never moved by rail. We all assumed the obvious. He was still in lab.
But if Thomas was there, was he still alive? And what was the purpose of keeping him at the complex? Almost a year after the
Creepy,
accident,
man.
the doors of Sodor research were reopened.
Oh
In
god.
an open invitation to the people of the island, Thomas rolled out of Shed 17.
It took me a moment to realise what it was I was looking at.
How did I watch this as
He
a
looked
kid
at me and
normally?
Hiya, Mr. Hartley.
It dawned on me what Hans Goetz and his
He
dad
kept
had
his
done.
memories.
One woman passed out as Thomas smiled at us. I had to run off round the side of the shed.
Hey, are you alright, Keith?
As news spread across the country, the world's media rushed to Sodor Island.
I don't know why as a child I never thought to myself, how did these trains gain faces? How did they gain sentient? How are they half human, huh? No, I just accepted it because I was a dumb kid.
They kept trying to interview me. I became a bit of a celebrity.
Controversy on Sodor Island. Questions asked about science ethics.
It's fair to say I was pretty nervous at times,
Joined now by Keith Hartley.
but I think I put on a brave face.
What did you think when
Stone
you first
cold,
came
brother.
to meet Thomas the Tank Engine?
That looks like a bit out of South Park, I'm sorry.
Most of my mates said I looked pretty good on telly. The mayor said I'd represented the people of Sodor very well. It's important to show you're confident when people are asking you awkward questions.
So it wasn't a secret, the world just accepted it.
Act of mercy or a crime against humanity. I am joined now by
Even when some of the questions got difficult,
Why are they
I made
asking
sure
him
I knew
and not the
what I was
Goetzes?
talking about.
What was your reaction when you first met a talking tank engine?
If you can't
This is his
make an
bit now, huh?
informed opinion, or if you can't string together two words on telly, well, maybe you shouldn't be on there.
There are two sides to this.
Admittedly,
Yes, we've
the
read
subject
one
matter was a bit
lot.
bizarre
Let's hear the other
sometimes.
one. There are some dark forces at work here.
You were alright as long as you could win over the audience.
They're laughing at you. They're not laughing with you.
Pretty sure that's a bit from actual
The Goetze family
television
refused to
history.
answer any questions. Behind closed doors, the only question they agreed to answer had been asked repeatedly. Would Thomas work on the railway? The response was an emphatic no.
Thomas's DNA had been reprogrammed to accept and adapt to the engine structure, using the engine's internal system to maintain his organic functions. What no one could be sure of was how much of the engine was mechanical and how much was organic material.
Thomas had been able
That's
to
what I
move
actually wanna
around
know.
without coaches, but to work on the railway, his engine would need to be fired up and operated by a driver and fireman.
So are they just shoving coal right into his booty hole and that's what's firing him up?
Since no one could be sure how much of the engine was Thomas, the pressure caused by the engine could rupture his organs from the inside.
Oh.
And the incredible heat could boil him alive.
Oh, okay.
Professor Hans and his father vowed Thomas would never work on the railways.
Similarly, the two professors were to refuse many requests by people from around the world who wished to be biofused into engines.
There were billionaires offering to pay whatever they wanted to be converted into an engine or some other transport. Train enthusiasts too, and people with terminal illnesses were desperate to be made into trains. But for some reason, the Goetzes refused.
But there would be other interested parties, eager to seize on the biofusion goldmine. The independently wealthy Topham Hatt staged a hostile takeover and within weeks had bought a controlling share in Sodor research.
Immediately, the policy of the company changed, and so did the ethics. The medical supply wing was shut down, and work began on mass biofusion experiments and operations.
So I'm assuming the medical wing of the facility was the part of the facility that made them money, and that's how they were able to do the R&D side of things, which eventually led to them being able to pounce on the opportunity of taking Thomas and doing that bioengineering side of things. Because they mention early on in the story that the elder Goetze, the grandfather, he had already been doing this research into biometric human fusion or whatever they called it.
Anyone who could afford it, some handing over their whole fortunes, were turned into engines.
But, along with the new policy, there would be worse to come. Biofused engines would be allowed, then obliged, to work on the railways.
The first one we fired up was James. He didn't have the money some of these people had, and so agreed to basically sign his life away if they wanted to experiment further, or to take massive risks like this. As usual, the fat had everything recorded. All kept classified, you understand.
These recordings, shown for the first time, reveal the extent of Sir Topham Hatt's experiments.
Dude, James looks like he's in pain.
Watching these engines work on the railways some days. But the tourists wanted to see it. They expected it. And for me, it was work.
But, with the new engine's increasing work schedule, came more and more accidents.
Oh, I want to know the lore behind the people that ended up becoming biofused.
He'd been filming all day for the new TV series they'd announced, and for his last scene, he had to pull into Wellsworth Station and whistle to the kids on the platform.
Deleted footage.
Whistled Edward. Thank you very much.
Sadly, this was only the first in an increasing number of incidents.
Harold had an obsession with aircraft.
Oh my god. So that's exactly what they were talking about with the inability for them to understand how much heat was being built up inside of him. And I guess steam release is a heat exchange. And so that's a time when, he could be like in a fluctuating state, which may result in his insides or innards just being spewed out like that. That was disgusting, but so cool.
An increasing number of incidents.
Harold had an obsession with aircraft and had paid to become a helicopter.
Oh, I forgot about Harold the helicopter.
Had gone well, but we had to ban him from being allowed to attempt flight.
In an experiment kept secret
Sodor
until
Railway,
now,
Mavis diesel
the
engine.
diesel engine was to be the first biofused locomotive used
Squareface.
on the railway.
We fueled her up and everything seemed fine. Then things got out of hand.
Her face doesn't look happy.
The diesel began to burn her internal organs.
Oh no.
Everything organic in the engine was soon burning.
Have you ever heard a locomotive scream in pain? We tried rinsing out the fuel tank with water, but by then it was too late.
Oh my god, being burned from the inside out?
Will be kept under lock and key indefinitely. In an unexpected U-turn, Sir Topham Hatt would ban fueled engines from being used on the island.
Oh my god.
Harold was never told why he couldn't fly, but the decision would keep him alive, if only for a little while longer.
In fact, unknown to the outside world, there had been many failed biofusion experiments.
That fat bastard kept the accidents a secret, and legal disclaimers had to be signed by anyone being biofused, so there'd be no legal action taken if anything went wrong.
Already dead? So some of those were just corpses just sitting there? If they couldn't control coal, fire, steam engines, then why did they think they could control diesel engines? Percy. Oh my god, okay, so Percy was dead.
Accidents happening, everyone started asking the same thing. Why had Thomas, the first engine, worked so well?
Maybe it's because of the bond?
Despite troubles the other engines had, Thomas had worked fine, seemingly oblivious to the other engines' problems and accidents.
Keeping their problems a secret from the outside world, Sodor Research began selling the technology to other countries in multi-million-pound deals. These countries would have less qualms about the use of fuel engines, and even the modern electric trains. Even failed biofueled engines were being displayed publicly in what would become a kind of freak show.
Oh my god.
To his horror, Professor Handskirtser saw what this was leading to. Slavery of engines, and immediately resigned.
Oh,
his father,
disgusting.
Wilhelm, would go one step further.
Would he start trying to actually sabotage the ones that have been created or something? Blowing them up? What did he do? He's gonna off himself, isn't he? What's he about to do, man? This is so creepy. Yeah, he's about to off himself. I mean, he started this. So he sold off all the shares to other companies. Not shares, but the IP. And then he was like, you know what? I've done too much damage. Time to go bye-bye. Looks like Roblox. Oh wow! He was full of dust.
Wilhelm couldn't come to terms with what was happening to his engines, and took the only course he thought he could take.
Looks like a matchstick.
That fat got a load of us rail staff over to his house to clean up after the body was taken away. You should have seen it. Sawdust everywhere. It took us days.
Why
such
sawdust?
Attempts to keep the incidents on Sodor a secret were short-lived.
The hell?
After a very public accident.
Gordon paid an enormous amount to be Sodor's first 462 configuration engine. Much bigger than any other engine at the time. We were terrified that fat engine paid an enormous...
Short-lived. After a very public... Attempts to keep the incidents on Sodor a secret were short-lived. After a very public accident.
Gordon paid an enormous amount to be Sodor's first 462 configuration engine.
Gordon.
Much bigger than any other engine at the time.
Or he's even got
terrified
wrinkles.
That fat shite would make us fire up that huge engine.
We were shocked to discover he had insisted on being able to work on the railway. So, one night, after the regular staff had finished for the day, fat some of the rail staff and I fired up the engine.
As usual, these experiments were filmed. This footage has never been broadcast before.
Dr. Ruth and I filmed it all.
Is it going to be like a
nuke?
Is it going to explode?
It was handheld.
Let's go handheld, baby.
At first, Gordon complained about the heat. Then that turned to pleas to douse the fire.
But that fat bastard held us back. He wanted to see what would happen.
He argued he had put a lot of work into
He's
Gordon,
a sick freak.
and the chances to get him working were too great an opportunity. He was literally cooking from the inside.
Oh no.
By the time we were allowed to act, it was too late.
Oh, blue flames.
I wasn't as near to him as some of them. All I could do was run. I was lucky to get away with some singed clothes. Others weren't so lucky.
The fateful few hours following the accident would seal the fate of Sodor Research.
Oh my god.
The stopped us trying to put out the fire, insisting that any evidence would fall back on us.
He kept repeating, "This was all your fault. You knew the dangers. You're legally to blame." He stopped us calling for ambulances or the fire brigade.
We told him, "These are injured people here. They're going to die unless we do something." But he kept saying, "No one from the outside can come in. No one can see this."
Finally, someone suggested we airlift them to hospital.
using...
Harold was banned from flying for his own safety, but we thought the risk was worth it.
Fueling Harold was a nervous experience. Would he have the same reaction Mavis had?
We all breathed a sigh of relief and loaded the injured people aboard. Then it all went wrong.
That just turned into a bomb as well. Oh my god, the blood coming out of the freaking top of it. There you go.
Harold's engine had worked fine, but what no one realized was most of Harold's lower extremities were permanently fused to his propeller system.
Oh my
As
god.
Harold's rotor blades began to spin,
It was just ripping it apart.
organs would be drawn into the motor and tear him apart from the inside.
Ugh.
Well, now there was no covering it up. The smoke could be seen all morning, but news people were here in an instant. We were told to close gates and start clearing up the mess ourselves, with some help.
Henry Thierry was the only 420
Henry
gauge engine on
Thierry? Like Thierry Henry, the football player, the French football player? Are you kidding me?
Henry Thierry was the only 420 gauge engine on the island.
Dude, he looks geeked
a
up.
large engine that had been working
Now
on the
he looks
railway regularly.
genuinely
He had
creepy.
become popular among tourists and the locals.
Henry was called into the yard to help tidy the mess. Working mostly at night, he would cart away the wreckage under cover of darkness.
We had to work quickly and quietly. Henry would cart wreckage from the yard away to the sea. Then one night the points were set wrong and we were diverted to another shed.
Henry had
Shed 17.
inadvertently been sent to shed number 17, where Thomas had been biofused into a tank engine and had subsequently been declared out of bounds.
It was
the original
dark,
site.
and these sheds all looked the same. I unlocked the doors and Henry rolled in. I didn't see what Henry saw, because as soon as he put his head through doors, he bolted and reversed out.
Keith locked the shed up without seeing what was inside.
Wouldn't it just be Thomas?
But Henry had seen it all.
What
we wouldn't
could...
even dare talk about that shed, more than our job's worth.
But Henry had decided to speak up.
Was it like a
and confront Sir
de-shelled
Topham
Thomas or
Hatt.
something?
That night, he arrived at the railway controller's office.
I don't know what was said in there, but there were raised voices at times. They had a shouting match for 10 minutes. Then Henry left, back to the shed.
By pure chance, he was sent back to the same shed as Thomas that night, and with one sentence, he sealed both their fates.
Henry only said one thing to him: stay away from shed 17.
Okay, so Thomas wasn't
The
in
next
there.
day,
It was
that
just the
fat
shed he
had
was
a new
made in.
job for him.
So there's a secret of how they're doing the biofusion in
The
there.
flying Kipper route ran through the night, delivering fish from the docks to the mainland.
Lion Killer,
It was the
1983.
highest altitude line in the country.
That old line was treacherous at best, but when Henry was put on there, in the middle of winter, it was a death trap.
In 1970, fish had started being delivered by road to the mainland. It was safer and more cost-effective, and the line was declared redundant. Dangerous and unnecessary, it came as a shock to the islanders when it was reopened.
That fat shite always hated Henry. He didn't like his cheerful manner, and he clearly had other lifestyle choices when he was a human. Fat wanted Henry away from the other engines, and Kipper Run was a death sentence.
He had other lifestyle choices. Was he trying to say Henry had different like sexual choices and he disliked him because of that? That makes things so much sadder and so much deeper as a character. That actually makes me feel so bad for Henry. My assumption was that he hated Henry more because he found out what the secret was in Shed 17.
On the night of February the 8th, 1983,
Sent him on a
Henry
suicide
had only
mission?
been on the Kipper Run for a week. The following incident would be made into a book and later recreated in the television series.
He derailed.
This is the train the railwaymen call the Flying Kipper.
Can you believe they put it in a kid's story? Of course, that
I saw it.
changed quite a few of the facts.
They couldn't know the points from the main line to a siding were frozen, and the home signal should have been set at danger, but snow had forced it down.
So this is
As the
actually
train
lore
approached
accurate.
the most treacherous part of the line, unnoticed to Henry, his driver and firemen, the points had diverted them to the adjoining siding and right into the path of another train.
Oh god. That's a setup, son. Look at those tanks. Setting him right into a bomb. Yeah. Ooh. Oh no. So that's not how it happened in the original cartoon. He just derailed,
Henry's
and I think they saved him.
fireman had jumped clear before the crash.
No, there was a bomb.
In fact, Al and Barry died from their injuries. Slowly, in snow. The poor bastards.
Die from...
By midday,
The
the
cold?
recovery operation was underway, and Sir Topham Hatt had arrived.
Cheer
Oh,
up, Henry,
God.
it wasn't your fault. Ice and snow caused the accident.
I think you caused
These
the
images
accident.
from a train spotter's camera were taken the evening before,
Bro,
and were
he looks
successfully
so
covered
creepy.
up by the Sodor Railway Board for 10 years.
What's on his
There's
face?
a railway spike in points, blocking them. Of course, that had disappeared by the time we got there.
I'm sending you to Crewe, a fine place for sick engines.
Crew.
Crew.
We all knew what that meant.
They'll give you a new shape and a larger firebox.
They're gonna dismantle
Crewe
him?
was, at the time, one of only 2 scrap metal yards in the UK
scrap
capable of
metal.
handling and recycling organic material as well as engine parts.
You'll feel a different engine and won't need special coal anymore.
With those few words, he'd sentence Henry to death.
Damn.
Won't that be nice? Yes, sir,
So
said
sad.
Henry doubtfully.
Everyone knew we wouldn't see him again. And everything was sewn up nice and neat for that fat
Oh my god, they're dismantling him.
As news got out about Henry's accident, it didn't take long for Thomas to realise Henry had been disposed of because of what he knew.
Yeah, 100%.
The next evening,
That's exactly what
Thomas
I
had
thought.
been put on his own for the night at Knapford Station. As his driver and fireman left, under what was left of his own steam, he set off for the Sodor Research Complex.
He had
Wow.
a small amount of burning fuel in his firebox, but he was mostly moving under his own strength. It took Thomas 3 hours to get to the complex, the effort to get there nearly killing him.
Oh no.
Thomas arrived at midnight. With no one around, he made his way to the shed where he was created. What he found was the answers to his questions, and many others.
I'm so freaking
Since
curious
Sodor
what it is in there, oh
had
my
become
god.
producing biofuels vehicles, the world had asked, why had the first biofusion operation worked so well, but nearly every operation since had failed? Sadly, Thomas found the reasons inside.
What the freak? Juvanium. No, just kidding. It's gotta have something to do with his familial
Thomas
ties
had
with the
never been
creators.
the first operation.
His father and
He hadn't
grandfather.
even been second.
Oh.
What shed number 17 contained was evidence of several attempts to create a tank engine with Thomas's DNA.
What the hell? To be honest, I did get a hint that that was the case because when they went to that metal scrapyard, the amount of trains that were there were way more than the cost of actually Thomas the Tank Engine. So that kind of insinuated that they had been sending tank engines there to be dismantled for a long time, or a high quantity of them at the very least. I like how this first test or prototype was like, we'll put wheels on a human. And then eventually they were like, we'll put a human on wheels.
Attempts to create a tank engine with Thomas's DNA. These had been early tests made by
God.
people with no experience of an experiment on this scale.
Oh my
Ill-planned
gosh.
and unprepared, these procedures had used DNA from the human Thomas and had been as much the real Thomas as the tank engine the world had come to know and love.
Oh god.
To us, Thomas the Tank Engine had been the Thomas we all knew as a boy. Part of the family the whole island's population had known and respected since Wilhelm first arrived.
Oh
In
god.
actuality, this tank engine was no more the real Thomas than all the failed creations made over the 12 months before.
This
Oh.
Thomas had all the human Thomas's memories and experiences. He had learned what Thomas had learned, known who Thomas had known, but so had all the previous failures.
Oh my god, he's just a version of Thomas. He's just a duplicate that survived.
Wilhelm and Hans Goetze had to learn through trial and error how to bring their Thomas back from the dead. The following experiments had not had the same work put into them, resulting in the freak engines and aircraft that had developed so many problems on Sodor Island.
So that's basically saying that the previous Thomases before the successful Thomas would have gone through the exact same catastrophes.
Aircraft that had developed so many problems on Sodor Island and around the world. In Shed 17, Thomas wouldn't discover who he was, but in fact, who he wasn't.
Which was Thomas, right? Because he wasn't really Thomas? Corpse? What? What? What is that? Oh no, he's deshelling. Oh my god. Oh, that is disgusting. That is disgusting. That kind of looks like a... Never mind. Whoa. No. Arms were never part of the design. Why is that there? Oh my god. What the freak is he? Holy hell, I did not expect this.
One of many clones. None of us did. But I guess as time passed, we stopped asking all the questions we had at first. We were just glad our friend was back with us. He could work for us. He became our servant in a way. Someone who drew in the crowds, helped create jobs, was eager to work. Thomas always thought of us as his friends. Sadly, over time we came to think of him as just really useful.
Oh god. I'm sorry that I haven't been talking that much in this last sequence, but I'm just in shock. What a fantastic story. That is really horrific to look at. Oh. In 1983, a government inquiry was launched into the events on Sodor Island and the labs of Sodor Research. Okay. Biofusion was banned the following year. Brother, it should have been banned straight away. What was that secret text? What does that say? Yes, I am instantly putting this on Photoshop because I need to see it right now. Hold on a second. Does that just say www.mayang.com/something? Isn't Maya just the 3D modeling engine? It says free texture library, so I think that's just not a secret at all. Compulsory work for biofused engines was finally banned after the Windscale nuclear flask test. What? Oh god. Why would you test that? Sir Topham had disappeared without a trace. His whereabouts were never discovered. He would now be 102 years old. I mean, he's got a lot of money, so there's a chance he still is alive. Thomas the Tank Engine remains in specialist unit where he has currently undergone 23 reconstructive operations. Oh god, that was disgusting. He had gauze all over his face. Biofusion was later banned in Europe, although biofused engines are still required to work. Sadly, in China, biofusion is still compulsory for all political prisoners. Oh, it's a form of punishment over there. Qinghai Tibet Railway. This feels racist. Biofusion trains never late. Always on time, never complain. Much easier to discipline. I don't like this. I don't like this at all. Not fair, man. Come on. Oh god. starring Abby L. Oh, that was incredible. That was so freaking good. Oh, we got a post-credit scene. Costa Concordia. There's someone standing on the side of that. You can see a silhouette. But beneath the ocean, we have a biofused boat. They're just drowning. Yeah, I could see that one coming from a mile away. That was pretty damn sad. That was absolutely fantastic. I can't believe I haven't watched this before, and it's so old, but it's still so good. And I'm super excited for the other videos in the series. But I know some of you watching this, like me, will be watching it for the first time. So let's just quickly do a summary so that we can explain everything, understand it, before we move on to the sequels. So Wilhelm Goetze, he is the first guy that starts this whole story off by being someone that worked in Nazi Germany. And when he fled, he came to Sodor Island where he was detained, and that's where he chose to live. And then his son Hans follows in his footsteps. Both of them are biologists, and Hans' son is Thomas. And by the way, Hans is the one that works on biofusion. It was his idea. Just to be clear, by the way, biofusion is the fusion of genetic material with mechanical elements. So Hans' son Thomas, who is obsessed with trains, eventually dies by the thing that he loves the most, which is a sad story in itself. But the two Goetze daddy-os take him into Shed 17, seal him up for a year, and eventually a year later comes out Thomas the Tank Engine. And from what we understand from the video, that's when Sir Topham Hatt, he buys like almost a majority share into the R&D section of the company, and he progresses biofusion research and experiments, even though the Goetzes refuse to continue biofusion research because we don't know, they just don't say anything. Fast forward, biofused engines are constantly causing accidents and incidents, blowing up, but Thomas alone stays okay, clearly, and that's where a lot of the mystery starts. And despite all of these bad things happening, Sir Topham Hatt starts to sell the IP to other nations as well, which essentially is the reason why, or the tipping point for the Goetze fathers to just kind of disappear. One of them, the older one, the elder, the one that first came to Sodor Island, killing himself, and Hans just resigning altogether and disappearing. And this is when the story gets good. So I really want to understand this fully, and please let me know if I'm not understanding this well. Leave your comments below. But Henry, by mistake, enters Shed 17, which has been fully sealed up since the creation of Thomas, sees something. Eventually, Henry gets sent on a suicide mission because of what he's seen by Sir Topham Hatt, and then Thomas hears about this and gets curious and wants to find out himself what's in Shed 17, which is his like birthplace, and that's when he finds out the truth that he is not the original Thomas, but a clone of Thomas. Which, by the way, heavily reminds me of one of my favorite stories of all time, which is in one of my favorite games of all time, Soma. I can't be the only one that's thinking of Soma when I hear this story. In Soma, you literally play as a character who eventually finds out that they aren't that character, they're a copy of the consciousness of that character, and that gives you like existential dread during the actual game, which is fantastically executed, but I feel like they did it really well in this as well. The existential dread that Thomas goes through after he realizes he's not actually Thomas, but a successful version of Thomas after all the other failed Thomases, and all the other incidents are kind of depictions of what the failed Thomases would have probably gone through, results in Thomas eventually just exploding outside of his shell and showing us what that internal organic side of him looks like, which is actually a lot more human than we realize. He's got arms even though a train does not need them. So clearly things aren't even perfect with him. But I think there's a lot more to this story, and I'm excited to get into that, into the sequels. If there are parts of the story that you think I missed or I need to dig into a little bit deeper, please let me know, but please don't spoil it for the people that haven't seen it, like me, who are on this journey together. If you enjoyed this, consider liking the video, subscribing, dropping a comment, but I'll see you in the next video where we go through the next analog horror series in this series. That sentence made no sense. The next video in this series. So until next time, goodbye everybody.